Welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. I get to speak with Nirinjan today, which I'm really excited to do and catch up with her. We had a podcast in the early days, or an episode in the early days of my podcast, and so this has been a few years since then, I think. A lot has changed, and so I'm really excited to get to talk to her about what she's been up to. So let's just get into it. Here we go.
Hello.
So how are you doing?
Doing well.
Loaded question, sorry.
I mean, it's been like a wild ride the last couple of years. Wild ride indeed. But I am alive, and therefore I am, yes, that's what I can say.
I am alive. You have made like the most, I don't know, you've had the most like beautiful posts, I feel like, since everything's happened, and you've been sharing a lot of your process and stuff. Was that part of your process, do you think? Like sharing it?
Oh, yeah, but that's such a beautiful question. Oh, nice.
Pat myself on the back.
Well done, well done. Yeah, it has been. Writing is very cathartic for me. I really enjoy writing, and it really helps me kind of come to the center of whatever experience I'm going through, to come to the center of it and to find what I need to find in that experience, find the lesson in that experience, and then when I get to I love expressing it, like posting it on social media. I love to express it because then I get to see the kind of mirrored light awaken in other people. Like people are like, yes, I hear you, I understand, I've experienced that too. Thank you, Mark. And I really, it's like, that makes me feel alive for sure. Mhm.
Was there ever anything that you decided to share that you were kind of nervous that you wouldn't have that like kind of luminous experience with?
Yeah, there have been some posts I've done, some pieces of writing that I've done that are a little edgy. That I was kind of like, it took me a while to post them because I'm like, I don't know how this is going to be received. People might think I'm insane, and I don't know. And usually with those pieces, like, I guess there's one in particular that I waited a long time to post, and then I finally did it one day. I was like, okay, no, it'll be fine. I should post it. And I did. And it was like the most shared and liked and commented on post that I did. And it went like a bit, I posted it on this like Home to Her page, this page on Facebook called Home to Her.
Oh,
And it like went there. And I don't know what happened, what happened since, I don't know, but I'm glad I did, because it exploded. And so but that was the hardest. Definitely, I felt that way with that one. I was like, that post is called Lilith. It's a piece of writing, and it's on my website. It's on my professional Facebook page, and it's on that Home to Her page. But yeah, it's about like the archetype of Lilith, which is like the kind of dark side of the divine feminine, and so it's just a little edgy, a little like slutty, like in a
that's cool. I think I don't know. I don't know if this is strange to say, but it seems like of all the people that I've known, well, there's a few, but like you seem to have just like kind of decided to just, okay, let's do something else. Like, so that wasn't it. I don't know. I don't know. Is that like your impression, or is that kind? Because I mean, we all have impressions when we see people's posts and.
Oh, I love that that's your impression. Definitely read. One thing that really has been powerful and wonderful for me in the last 2 years is that I right in the beginning of 2020, like when everything started to shift, when COVID happened, when my spiritual community turned upside down, I felt inspired to start getting into astrology and researching it. I got this like fantastic mentor. I listened to podcasts. I read books. I immersed myself in the study of Western astrology and immersed myself. I mean, I was obsessed. When I say I immersed myself in something, it's like I'm completely obsessed with it. And it's like every spare moment, and my brain soaks it up like a sponge. And like my whole life becomes that, like live and breathe the thing. And so, yeah, I did that with astrology, and then I started slow, just like giving people informal, just like readings, and just kind of dipping my toes into the world of working with people with astrology. But I very quickly, I learned very quickly and kind of found my footing in it very quickly, and then but I still kept just doing it informally, and then I started charging, a small amount, and then eventually I started charging not like a lot, I still for reasonable prices, but like but yeah, so now I've been doing it for 2 years now, and now I refer to what I do as astrology based life coaching. So because it's not just like your run-of-the-mill astrology reading, where like someone will tell your fortune or predict your future, or some astrologers like to even just do a reading and send you a recording of it, which I have, like, I don't see that there's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of ways to do astrology, but I was drawn. I'm not even super into like transit readings, which are more like predictions and stuff. I actually am drawn to the psychology of it and to the kind of more counseling side of it, where I use it as like I almost use it as like a personality map. You know how like sometimes when you go see coaches or counselors or whatever, you'll fill in like an intake form, like a form about your life, and they kind of, or sometimes people like to use the Myers-Briggs like personality test, right? I kind of relate to astrology as a tool, a similar type of tool where, you know, I get to look at someone's chart, but the first thing I do when I meet with people is hear from them, and I get to see, it's like, okay, well, here's their chart, but here's the human. And like, I kind of get to click their chart onto them and see like, well, how does everything I see in their chart manifest for them actually? And because otherwise it doesn't matter to me. I'm like, I don't care what this chart says unless it's on a person.
Yeah.
And
so they've sent it to you ahead of time?
no, they just send me their birth info, and I pull up their chart.
Okay.
And plan it ahead of, I just kind of plan it out and look at all the connections and look at the way their planets are set up and the signs and stuff. And then in the reading, it's just like, we just talk about their life and what they have trouble with and what they love, and what's going on for them. And basically what I do is help people see themselves clearly. People often come to me for like guidance or advice, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not actually gonna give you guidance or advice, sorry. But what I will do is help you connect with, like, see yourself more clearly and see your life more clearly and understand your nature better, so that you can reorient your perspective and then find your own way. Because I'm like, I don't know your life. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. Like, God, the worst idea ever. But what I can do is help like awaken them to like, well, have you tried looking at yourself this way? Like, are you aware that you might be sensitive in this way, in a way that you didn't realize? And oftentimes people are like, oh my God, yeah, that explains so much. That's exactly right. And it just reorients them so that they can see their problem from a different perspective. And then it's not a problem. Then it's just like, how do they walk in it then? And they get to decide that. And so it's like essentially putting people back in the driver's seat, as opposed to getting in the driver's seat instead of them, which is what people think they want a lot of the time. Get in the driver's seat, tell me what to do, I don't know, I'm lost. I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, no, you just need like to turn on Siri to like, like tell you where you are. You just need to be able to see the map. That's okay. You'll figure it your own way. And so that's what I love doing. And I also feel passionately about doing that because I feel like in my upbringing in the Kundalini Yoga world, I was more encouraged to give up my position in the driver's seat and give my power away to higher to a higher power, to guides, to guru, to whatever else, put anything else in the driver's seat other than me. And me in the driver's seat was considered ego. And, putting myself in the driver's seat was considered going into Shakti pod, as they called it. And I'm like, no. So the work that I do, I feel really passionately about putting people in their own driver's seat and helping them just figure out how to actually drive. Because people just don't know how to drive because they don't know themselves. And I'm like, I'll help you.
It's interesting that was your experience and also mine. And yet we were doing a practice, and you were doing it much longer than I was, that was supposedly putting you in the driver's seat. I mean, that was the marketing pitch, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Well, that's the problem. That was the problem. And that's why it was that's why it was like one giant gaslighting session. And who I actually don't blame any single person for, because I completely unintentionally gaslit tons of people, because that's what was how you do it. Gaslighting them by telling them to not listen to their guidance, and by saying like, no, I am telling you to get in your driver's seat. That's what it's about. And it's like, but none of us knew that that's actually the opposite was happening. And in my opinion, that's what happens with cults. That's a cult thing. That's just actually pretty normal. It's actually normal. It happens all the time. And that, to me, that's the essence of spirituality, really, is finding that complete. It's like turning that coin. Really, it's two sides of the same coin. It seems like the opposite thing, but it's two sides of the same coin. It's like either giving your power away or claiming your power over your own life. And one thing that I always come back to with the astrology work that I do is that everything has its gift, and everything is a double-sided coin, and like everything has its gift and its shadow. And that what I've noticed is that in our lives, all of us get to experience both the gift and the shadow, both. We don't get to experience only one side of anything. We get to experience the pain and the pleasure, and the love and the loss, and the life and the death, both. And that's part of just being alive. And so I feel that generally when you're in the experiencing the shadow side, it's like usually that's from fear and shame and desperation is what puts us into that shadow experience. And the one, like when we have a traumatic experience and we're afraid, we draw back and we pull back and we're like, oh no, oh my God, disconnect, and your brain goes into survival mode. How can I survive and get through this thing? And you get like overwhelmed with feeling, and you're like, nope, just have to survive. So you disconnect. And you can't really feel love when you're in that state. You can't feel love when you're in survival mode. It doesn't work. And if you're in survival mode, from PTSD, from various ways for a long period of time, you forget how to feel love, right? Your nervous system kind of forgets what pleasure feels like, because you're just constantly in survival mode. And that you end up just feeling the default and the shadow side of things. Everything becomes pain, everything becomes hard. And everything flips over into its shadow mode. But then the one thing that unlocks that shadow and brings it to the gift seems to be love, from what I've seen. That love just works every time, like safety and love. And so I just feel that spiritual organizations, just like everything else, have their gift and their shadow side. Why would that be any different? There's no perfect spiritual organization. It's not how it works. You have to be able to be in the gift frequency of it and not the shadow frequency. And in my opinion, the shadow frequency is actually giving away your power, where the gift frequency of it is claiming your power. But it takes love for that. It takes love and safety. And unfortunately, a lot of the human beings that come into those spiritual organizations are scared. And they're just like, oh my God, I want to give my power away because I'm really super scared, and I want you to take care of me and tell me what to do. And also, there's people in power positions like Yogi Bhajan was, who are abusing and manipulating people. And that doesn't create an environment of safety. It creates the opposite. And so, you know, if you don't feel safety, you don't feel love, and then you get to be in the shadow of it. So anyway, that was a spiel.
Yeah. No, and as you were saying that, I was thinking, oh, I kind of forgot my thought. Anyway.
Sorry, it's my fault.
No. It's no, that was really great. I got really mesmerized by the whole visual of that. Yes. I think part of the fear for people too, once you're in it, is the fear of if you don't follow what is being taught, as opposed to like what you're feeling about it, or what you're, you know, feeling empowered to make decisions that maybe don't conform to the group's ideals, then you're going to be ostracized and maybe you don't have a community anymore.
Totally. Fear. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's kind of what ended up happening anyway, which was, you know, like the sort of dissolution of this, what was, you know, in some senses kind of a beautiful collection of people, you know?
Oh, it totally was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we all kind of like, it's sad because like what brought us all together was this belief system which we participated in both the gift and shadow of. We both felt all the love, but also all the fear of being ostracized, and the fear of thinking differently, and the fear, and so we all felt, and so we all gave our power away, because another thing is like whatever we're afraid of, we give our power to. And so if, you know, it's like if you're in survival mode, and you're afraid of losing something, then it's like if you're in survival mode and being in a group, like accepted into like a tribe, makes you feel safe, which it makes everyone feel safe because we're human. You know, then you have this fear of loss and this fear of being ostracized, and then you give power to that fear of being ostracized, which allows that to control you, because you're afraid. You give power over it, power over you. And it's sad because that's totally human. We're all afraid of being ostracized. Jesus, that's how we were biologically survived. It sucks. It's kind of like, who's susceptible to being, you know, being in a cult? Try everybody. You know, it's like everyone is.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was going to say to that point, absolutely everyone. And I think what's so interesting is that unless someone has actually recognized how they've become susceptible to any sort of, you know, idea, thought, political party, I mean, anything, you know, they get involved and they like stake their whole identity on it. I think they're not very compassionate to the idea that you could get duped, or that you could like look back 10 years later and go, or 20 or 50, you know, and go, how did I believe that for so long, you know? Because they're like, you should have known better, but it's hard to know unless you've experienced.
Yeah, it really is, because there's so much gray area. It's like, because it wasn't all it's because it's like with the being duped, there was so much true, real, genuine love that was present. And you know, just like in a relationship or a marriage, and it's just like, you know, you don't get like, for a lot of people, it's like you don't get divorced or separated and think like that entire thing was a mistake, there was never any love.
Oh, that's such a great point. I love that.
Of course there was, but there, with the light comes the dark, with the gift comes the shadow. There was also stuff that was really unhealthy because both people's traumas just came up, and we both acted out unhealthy stories, and it's like we had to then free each other from those unhealthy stories and give new shape and and give a new container to the love that exists. That's just not. And I feel that, you know, it's the same with you know, the kind of with the Kundalini Yoga world. It's like, I know everyone that I've talked to, everyone says, but I miss the community, but I miss the people, but it's like, well, who abused you? Who gaslit you? That person? Well, yeah, but it wasn't their fault. They're such a beautiful person. I love them. It's like, yeah, that's everybody. That was all of us. Right? It's like, whose fault was it? Like, well, it was all of our fault and none of our fault. So because all of us are human and we all had fear and we all bought into this. Well, it was kind of Yogi Bhajan's fault, but you know, like even him, like
Yeah.
what the hell he actually went through when he was a
Yeah.
kid.
And he
It's
wouldn't have been able to create anything if people hadn't wanted it too, which is,
yes, it's true.
yeah,
Hmm.
which,
And
yeah,
it's yeah. I mean, he did prey on us, but we did
yeah.
just lay down and just expose our bellies.
Well, that was something. I'm not sure if you listened to the Shubitz podcast that he did. It was like a two-part series. It was like the history of yoga in the US. Oh my God, it's so good.
Oh, that's really good. Oh,
Yeah, it's
cool.
so good. But one
Yeah.
of the things that he talks about, Philip de Slip talks about in that is just like how ripe and ready these people were for wanting someone to tell them what to do. I mean, it was just
Yes.
it was like the perfect storm. And so many of the things that Yogi Bhajan ended up teaching, according to him, were things that they were like, you want us to be vegetarian, right? Yes, you must be vegetarian. Like these sorts of things, whereas he probably wasn't in the first place anyway, but he knew that that's what they wanted to hear. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was really interesting to me.
Well, and he probably also saw that, like, oh, is this? It's kind of like once it's kind of like when you want to sell someone something, you have to find out what they want first,
Mm-hmm.
and it puts them in a position of power to be able to then buy them with their power. It's
Mm.
like, oh, you want to give your power to me? If I tell you to do this thing, they're like, yeah, okay, I'll to do it.
Right.
And I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and yeah, it's so hard because there's really one really interesting thing I found in this process is really like a lot of the people that I even see in my astro coaching practice is like most of the people that come to me are people who know me through my music, and they're like, oh,
Mm.
you do this, oh my God, okay, I want it.
Mm-hmm.
And which I'm so grateful for, thank God. And but and it's kind of like I speak to so many people all the time who still love the Kundalini practice and who
Mm-hmm.
still do it and are just like, I'm like, well, yeah, they're not being indoctrinated right now. They were never indoctrinated. That was not a thing for them.
Yeah.
Like how many people on this planet who were just so beautifully touched and could still are touched by this practice. And it's like um one thing that was happening that I witnessed when everything came out about Yogi Bhajan was that people whose lives had literally been saved by the practice of Kundalini Yoga,
Mm.
who had never been into the indoctrination of it, who had never gone into like the inner circle, whatever. They just practiced it and it saved their lives. And they do all kinds. They drink, they eat meat, they
Mm.
whatever. They have nothing to do with the like lifestyle or the like dharma of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came out, they're like, it's it's like to say this is all fake. Actually, it's all a cult and it's fake and you were manipulated and duped and none of it's real is actually horrible and not okay for them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's not true. They actually were healed. They actually did have this beautiful experience. It was their medicine. And to say that it's wrong and fake is like gaslighting them.
Mm.
And I saw it and I was like, no, 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 guys, hold on. We need to be a little conscious about this here because this is abusive to them and
Mm.
it's not fair to them. And and um and I really, the way I feel also about, but then of course it's a tough one. It's a tough one because then everyone who, it's like I don't want to just, you can't just say, oh no, it's legitimate and it's real, because then everyone who was totally screwed over by it in the indoctrination side and in the dharmic side is like, you can't say that. Don't say it's real because like, no, it's not. Look at all the reasons why it's fake. And this is no, because
Right.
it was,
Right.
they were abused.
Right.
And so it's very like this interesting line to walk. And what I feel, I mean, my personal opinion is that total personal opinion on the matter is that like I like to compare it to like scientists and psychedelics, because like
Oh, I can't wait to hear this. Okay.
good. Oh, good. I can't say. I'm always excited. You can always get me to talk. You know what I mean? So like as far as I'm concerned, Kundalini Yoga is like it's a form of just it's almost like a form of a psychedelic, especially anyone who's like gone really deep into like white tantric yoga, the breath, pranayama practices, meditation. It's like people have practically had hallucinations like during white tantric yoga practices. It's like, anyone who's done both psychedelics and really heavy duty Kundalini yoga, anyone's going to draw a comparison and be like, yep, that's very similar experience. And of course, in Kundalini Yoga, we were, in the like dharmic kind of side of things. We were taught like, no, the psychedelics are evil. Don't touch them. They'll make it so that you can't meditate ever again. They'll destroy your brain, which is very culty, in my opinion. They're just trying to like monopolize, spiritual experience. And it's just like, sorry, you can't actually do that. You can try and make us believe. But anyway, so, and with psychedelics, when they are, when they're used intentionally and in a safe space with the proper dosage, for the individual that, would like to use them, they can be profoundly healing, like profoundly just like help you have incredible psychological personal growth breakthroughs that you can spend years doing talking therapy and then just have a medicine ceremony with proper integration and just make leaps and bounds. It can change your life because it directly accesses your nervous system and helps you to integrate change and open doors that you wouldn't be able to open otherwise. And that's important. And or psychedelics can be abused, and they can be slipped into somebody's drink when they're not looking. They can be, used without someone's consent. They can be used in massively high doses again and again and literally kill people. They can, you can become addicted to a psychedelic and just spiral downward and not be able to, relate to your brain in a normal way anymore. Yeah, they can be abused. They can be abused. They can be used abusively. And in my opinion, so can Kundalini Yoga, and it was. And, I love Russell Brand's quote. I wish I had it in front of me. I don't have it, but he talks about like, comparing different drugs and to different yogas, like to different, like, like marijuana is like, like a nice hatha, you just get kind of high and like whatever. But then, and then he compares, he says that Kundalini Yoga is like the crack cocaine of yoga. And he says it just blows the fucking doors off. That's what he says. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to argue that. Yeah, it does. And in my opinion, that's the intention. And that's why you create. Like, I totally, in my opinion, he did create it. I don't believe this like story of like this lineage and it was taught in secret and he like, whatever. I don't know. That could be true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't actually think, I think he fabricated that story. That's my opinion. But I think that what he did was, I think that he actually was like a yogic master. I think he gathered breath techniques and meditation techniques and, asana techniques from like just many different practices. And I think he was like a scientist in a lab, like the scientists that created MDMA. They're like, how can we make like a really potent psychedelic to do this like very specific thing? And they like get all these like naturally occurring substances that they find from all these different places and put them all together, test it out, and like create this like thing that packs a real punch that's very, very powerful. In my opinion, I think that's exactly what Yogi Bhajan did. I think he was like a scientist in a lab, and he brought together all these different practices, all these different techniques, and created an incredibly powerful practice that is in many ways like a psychedelic, and used it, in my opinion, and then just like taught it, and people are getting high. Obviously, they're like, this is the best thing ever, because they were doing psychedelics, are all the hippies, right? They're like, oh my god, now we can do this, and like we can, they're like, well, it's more kind of controlled and it doesn't have these big side effects, in the same way that like Coke does, or like, and it doesn't necessarily have the same addictive, properties. Well, anything can be an addiction, but anyway, and Everyone got high, and then he told them that this was the mission of their soul, was to spread this thing. And to me, that's where everything went wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's where it's like that he used it as a tool to tell them that that's their purpose in life and that's their mission, and they've got to follow this thing, and then they'll be like liberated, and that's the best thing that they could possibly do. And he's like, well, don't you believe me? It's real. Like, practice this meditation and tell me that's not real.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they're like, no,
and that.
it's real.
Yeah. No, I was thinking also the abusive part would have been just to convince them that they could only get that state through him. I mean,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that this is the only way. It's the only one. Yeah. I mean,
which you said
interestingly,
before about monopolizing, but yeah.
monopolizing, yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, he was always very like, I remember he was like meeting with Dalai Lama, and he's like talking about other practices and saying how, like, you know, all these ways are the ways to God, and he doesn't like, it's like he monopolized it and didn't at the same time.
That was
like
part
he
of the
taught-
podcast that Shravan did, interestingly. It was like
Mhm.
how he was like he would talk shit about the white people to the Punjabis in Punjabi, and then he would talk shit about the Punjabis to the white people in English, and like, so maybe there was some of that going on too, that like what everyone was hearing was sort of different from the actual conversations that were taking place.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's almost like, what it sounds like to me is that he would try to, that he would actually kind of like speak what was the truth and what people could really resonate with. And like kind of like, because you know, the truth is everybody's perspectives all mixed up together, right? It's like, so if people, in my opinion, it's like there's no one truth. It's like, well, yeah, well, how about what everybody says? You know, like, how about everyone's perspective? Everyone has a different piece of the truth, that when we put it all together, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But like, maybe it was like that he, you know, spoke about, kind of like tried to tune into people and spoke about, you know, because like he did say things to people that were really genuinely helpful and true for them. Like, many people did have that experience where he would like kind of find their fault line, find their like place and poke it. And, you know, but he would do it so that they would follow him. Right. And said that he was doing it to like, so that he could stimulate this like growth in them, and that they would be like the best human being that they could be. But really, no, it was just so that they would be like, you're right, I'm going to follow you. He even said, don't follow me.
Right.
You know, and we're like, look how humble he is, I'm going to follow him. You know, it's like, I just feel like that's all he was doing, really.
Yeah.
It's like, he's like, wow, what's the truth here? What kind of like, what do they want to hear? But like, but also like even deeper than what it's almost like, what do they need to hear? And then once they hear it, they'll know that I'm like, quote unquote, their teacher. You know, because it's like, sometimes it wasn't just what people wanted to hear, right? Because sometimes it was what people really did actually need to hear, and that's what made it so shitty. Was because he used that to manipulate them, because he actually really did see people a lot of the time, and he used that to manipulate them to follow him. And that's how he preyed on people, and that's why like the smartest people got sucked in anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear your perspective on that. Yeah. Do you feel like you would have gotten into music if it hadn't been for you got to go in like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, so we'll wrap it up. Do you feel like that would have been a path for you if it hadn't been for the yoga? Like, was that sort of encouraged more than you would have naturally wanted to do it, or do you think you would have become a musician regardless?
I don't know, because I was born born 3 months early, and I was like in this incubator, and they like put a tape deck playing mantra in the incubator. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I don't know, there was no time before. So it's like, I mean, I feel, yeah, because there was no time before. So there was no me without it. It's like there was never a chance for me to feel that way until now. And now I'm having trouble finding my way back to music. I haven't sung really in 2 years. So that's actually we can leave it there, and that's it. It's like it's like yes, there is music. There is music without 3HO, but I haven't found it because it was too woven in. My process of claiming my own life and starting my own life, I can feel it. Like I know that as I claim myself and start my own new life and get to build my own life for myself and empower myself, I'm gonna have to find my art. There's gonna be music that's mine, and I haven't found it yet.
Oh, that is a really nice note to end on. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people how they can contact you about maybe getting some astrology life coaching?
Yeah.
Do you...
Yeah, you can go to my website, nirinjanastro.com, Nirinjan astro.com. And yeah, it's super easy. You can read all about what I do. You can the different session types that I offer, but if it's your first time, you got to do the initial natal chart reading. But anyway, you can learn all about that. You can book really easily through there on my schedule. Everything's streamlined, super easy. And you can read also on my website things that I've written, like that Lilith thing that I mentioned about the divine feminine. And there's a lot of other things I've written on there that you can also, people can look at. And there's a link to my music website. You can listen to my music, which I don't regret a single note of. I don't regret it at all. And it was truly an authentic expression of my art, and as it was in my life. And I'll make more, but I don't regret what I did already. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. And thanks for tuning in, y'all. And we'll see you in the next episode. All right, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast, y'all. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, whatever the platform you listen to podcasts on offers you as a way to let its algorithm know that you're enjoying these episodes. That really helps. Also, there's some links in the podcast description notes that allow you to support the podcast in a way that benefits you and us. So please check those out. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can sign up for my mailing list at portersinger.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.